The moment the warning echoed across the world, it didn't sound like a normal political statement. It sounded like the opening line of a story that history would never forget, a story where power, pride, fear, and hope collided in ways no one expected. And before you hear how this unfolds, pause for just 1 second, because stories like this don't just inform us, they awaken us. If you believe truth matters and global power affects every life on this planet, tap like now and subscribe to Goodness Hub Stories, because what you're about to hear may change how you see the world forever. It began with a single sentence spoken into a microphone, a sentence heavy with threat and legacy. Trump warns of war. Markets trembled, analysts froze, and ordinary people thousands of miles away felt a strange unease they couldn't explain. But while the world focused on Washington, something extraordinary was happening quietly in Africa. Nigeria, a nation long described as developing, was no longer waiting for permission. For decades, the US dollar had ruled global trade like an invisible empire. Oil, debt, aid, influence, all tied to a green piece of paper backed by military power and political pressure. Nations that challenged it often paid a price, sometimes in sanctions, sometimes in chaos, sometimes in silence. Nigeria had watched all of this patiently. Its people endured inflation, currency shocks, and dependency narratives written by outsiders. But inside Nigeria, a new generation was rising. Economists who questioned old rules, leaders tired of borrowed strength, traders dreaming of sovereignty, and citizens who asked a dangerous question: what if we no longer needed the dollar to survive? When news broke that Nigeria was exploring trade settlements outside the dollar system, critics laughed. They said it was symbolic. They said it was impossible. They said no country dared challenge the dollar without consequences. Then Trump's warning came. Sharp, loud, unmistakable. To some, it sounded like protection. To others, it sounded like fear. Because empires don't threaten war when they are confident, they threaten war when they feel control slipping. Nigeria didn't respond with weapons or speeches filled with rage. It responded with policy, patience, and resolve. New agreements were signed. Regional currencies gained purpose. Digital payment systems replaced old dependencies. African trade corridors strengthened quietly, deliberately, without drama. And that silence terrified the world more than noise ever could. Because history teaches us something brutal. Empires rarely fall from attack, they fall from irrelevance. In villages and cities across Nigeria, people felt something unfamiliar: dignity. Farmers trading without losing value overnight. Entrepreneurs planning futures not tied to foreign interest rates. Students learning that power isn't always loud, sometimes it's strategic. Meanwhile, headlines screamed about war, but the real battle wasn't fought with soldiers. It was fought with systems, confidence, and the courage to imagine a different future. Trump's warning dominated screens, but Nigeria's move rewrote textbooks. Analysts argued endlessly. Was this rebellion? Was this economic suicide? Or was it the beginning of a multipolar world where no single currency could hold humanity hostage? Mothers watching the news didn't care about theory. They cared about food prices. Fathers didn't care about ideology. They cared about stability. And slowly, almost invisibly, stability began to take root. Not perfection, but progress. The dollar didn't collapse overnight. Empires never do. But cracks appeared. Small at first, then undeniable. And every crack told a story. That power borrowed can be reclaimed, that dependency can be unlearned, and that the global order is not written in stone, it's written by those brave enough to challenge it. As tensions rose and rhetoric grew harsher, one truth became clear: this was never just about America or Nigeria. It was about whether the world would remain locked in an old system built on fear, or step into a new one shaped by cooperation and choice. And here's the twist no one saw coming. War never came. Not because threats worked, but because the battlefield had changed. Guns couldn't stop economic evolution. Fear couldn't reverse confidence. And the quiet courage of one nation inspired many others to start asking the same dangerous, hopeful question: what if we choose our own path? If this story made you think, feel, or see the world differently, don't let it end here. Like this video, subscribe to Goodness Hub Stories, and stay with us, because the most powerful stories aren't about the past. They're about the future being written right now.